I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
devoting himself to others, including raising funds to help people living in his area. During the pandemic, there was great concern when it came to light that he had caught COVID. True fighter that he was, he overcame the virus and resumed his seat in his wheelchair, decked out in the colors of the Quebec flag, in order to continue greeting people. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois and myself, I extend my deepest condolences to his family and friends. Farewell, Monsieur Bonbon, and thank you for everything.
The honourable member from Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, this very week, exactly a year ago, I brought up open drug use in parks and playgrounds, how our communities were less safe, and how there were serious safety concerns, with law enforcement saying they were being handcuffed. And yet, the Liberal and NDP MPs clapped vigorously to support their drug policies. In BC, there's more people dying, more diversion of government drugs, and more unsafe drug paraphernalia littering our neighbourhoods, more challenges for our law enforcement. The BC NDP government finally acknowledged their failed drug experiment and just announced massive changes, asking the Prime Minister to reverse his drug policies. After 9 years, the Prime Minister's extremist policies allowed for deadly hard drugs to be used in public spaces like parks, coffee shops, beaches, and hospitals. This NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. Conservatives will ban hard drugs, stop taxpayer-funded drugs, and put money into detox and recovery.
Hear, hear. The honourable member from Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital on its 125th anniversary. For 125 years, Holland Bloorview has provided care to children and youth with open doors and open arms. Its mission is global, its approach is local, helping one child and one family at a time until kids with disabilities are fully included in the social, cultural, and economic life of our city, our province, and our country. Holland Bloorview is a world leader in research, education, and healthcare. With groundbreaking research on concussions, prosthetics, autism, cerebral palsy, and more, done at its campus on Kilgore Road with partners around the world, as well as its compassionate care and love.
There's been tragic data today, Mr. Speaker. 25% of Quebecers are living below the poverty line, that is, below a good average life, and this is a direct result of the centralizing, bureaucratic, unnecessary spending of this Prime Minister. And his spending is 100% supported by...
How many scandals do you think Trudeau has had? I have another video over here showing how many, and it is a lot. And I think shame needs to be brought back into Canada because he has no shame anymore, and I think it just trickles down to everyone underneath him. And that's what's really frustrating about Trudeau. And as far as an election is concerned, obviously there should have been one a year ago. But do you think it'll really be in October 2025? Because his steam, like all he has to do is smile and for the camera, go on his vacations. There's going to be a new love in his life coming up, probably, because he has to, because he needs to take attention away from himself. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Let's go back to the video.
The Bloc Québécois. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister and the Bloc Québécois stop impoverishing Quebecers? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, we unveiled our budget. Our budget seeks to ensure fairness for all generations and for all Quebecers. Currently, a carpenter and a nurse pay taxes at a marginal tax rate that is higher than that paid by big business. That's not fair. Yet the Conservative leader opposes our plan for fairness. The only thing these Conservatives want is austerity. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
After 9 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. He's not worth the cost for Quebecers. Quebecers are paying double for rent, for housing, and to service the national debt. This Prime Minister is a big spender. He is spending $54.1 billion on debt services charges instead of on health. What's worse, the Bloc Québécois voted in favor of this Prime Minister's spending. They support $500 billion in spending. Once again, when will this Prime Minister stop making Quebecers poorer? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, here's the reality. What we just heard is untrue. Here's the truth. Canada has a AAA credit rating. Canada has the lowest debt and the lowest deficit of all G7 countries. The Conservatives are against our plan because the only thing they're in favor of is austerity, and they also support their very wealthy friends.
Leader of the Opposition.
After 9 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the drugs, disorder, death, and destruction. In May of 2022, he granted the BC NDP government's request for a criminal code exemption to allow crack, meth, heroin, and fentanyl use in parks, coffee shops, hospitals, beaches. Overdose deaths since exploded to a record-smashing 2,500 lost lives. The BC NDP government has reversed course and asked the federal government to recriminalize some hard drugs. Why won't this Prime Minister recriminalize these deadly drugs?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we answered the call of the BC government when they requested the exemption on decriminalization of personal possession of certain illicit drugs. Mr. Speaker, what is driving this overdose crisis is the illegal drug supply. Every life lost is a tragedy. I met with Minister Whiteside this past Friday. We are reviewing their exemption request. Mr. Speaker, we have a clear lens on public health and public safety because we have a plan. They do not.
I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
She's wasting time while people are dying. In the year after this radical Prime Minister granted the decriminalization of crack, heroin, and other hard drugs in parks and hospitals, 2,500 people died. The overdose death in the 9 years of this Prime Minister have tripled to the fastest rising of the 11 countries studied by the Commonwealth Fund. Nurses are afraid to go to work because they have to put up with addicts using meth, crack, and weapons in their hospital room. Even nurses are having to give up on breastfeeding because they're worried their kids will be contaminated with the drugs they breathed in. What the hell are they thinking over there?
The honourable member, as a long-time member of this House, I'll just ask him to withdraw the offensive word because it is not parliamentary.
I withdraw because they're not thinking over there.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, last week we saw the Leader of the Opposition once again encourage supporters of white supremacy, anarchy, and misogyny. This has been a regular occurrence. He draws the admiration of people who dismiss the slaughter of children in our schools. The Leader of the Opposition.
And is Chrystia Freeland doing a good job? She is the finance minister and the vice president of Canada. And she is the one that just looks like her head is just spinning when she talks. It's always like trying to drag it on, never answer a question. And maybe they should have this I thought they would always do this. When they ask a question, say, do you mind after you finish it if you give me 5 seconds to say if you answered it or not for our listeners? Because it is so frustrating. Everything is an infomercial with both of them. And that's something that I think needs to be stopped. Maybe the whole Constitution and the human rights and everything needs to be rewritten again after those two are gone, because this is just frustrating what they're doing. Anyway, let's go back to the video.